Hey everybody, welcome back once again to the Dancing Sober podcast. I'm really excited about this week's episode, but I want to first thank our sponsors. First off, thank you to Movita Juice Bar. Go to movitajuicebar.com to find their locations, or you could also order through your food apps like Uber Eats. Don't forget movitajuicebar.com. Only good stuff. Yeah. We also have to shout out our local coffee shop, Picaresca Cafe. Thank you to Picaresca Cafe for packaging our little roasted beans here in these bags. Hit me up if you would like to get some of this Dancing Sober blend. They had a small fire out there. Well, I don't know if it was a small fire, but they had a fire out there. The Bank of America building right next to the Picaresca Cafe was on fire, so I hope that everything turned out okay after that. I'll need to check in on them after I record this. But come by and visit the local coffee shops and support local. Claro que sí, siempre Picaresca Cafe. I also want to shout out Espacio 1839. During the pandemic, they had to keep the store closed and they haven't been able to completely reopen. So they only open Fridays from 12 to 7, Saturdays from 12 to 7, and Sundays from 12 to 6 until they get completely back on their feet again. But come by and support Espacio 1839 at 1839 East 1st Street in Boyle Heights. Check it out. This week's guest is an emerging artist, painter that grew up in both Mexico and the U.S. and Northridge and Oxnard. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniela Garcia Hamilton. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dancing Sober podcast. And today we are here with the visitor from just a little bit up north, Daniela Garcia Hamilton. How are you, Daniela?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Rafa?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the little trek from Oxnard to our beautiful little city of Boyle Heights.
It was definitely worth the drive. It's my first time actually being in Boyle Heights in the historic area, so it's been really great to kind of look around and see a lot of the history.
Yeah. We had a little tiny walk, but I can't help to just blurt out all of the historic little aspects of this neighborhood.
That's the best kind of cruise, I feel like, because it's like walking around and not knowing what's really there makes it really easy to forget. But when someone knows the history of their neighborhood, it makes it so much more interesting.
Yeah. I've been around here since I was a little tiny punk. Even though when I was little, I lived closer in the East LA side, but I had family that lived down here. There was some projects down the street, so I was always up here. But let's talk a little bit about something else. When I was little too, I would go a lot to Oxnard. And
Really?
Oxnard, yeah. I have family up there. Still have family up there. My padrino lives up there. And Oxnard, when I remember it as a child, it was strawberry fields after strawberry fields. And I remember we would drive out there. We'd go over the hills and then over the mountains, over the grapevine, and then end up just a bunch of strawberry fields. We would get off the freeway, I think on Rose.
Yes.
I always remember that name.
Yeah.
And then we'd go into town, and it was still just fields and fields and fields of strawberries. And little by little, throughout the years, things started developing. And my padrino actually bought a house that was like in a tract homes, like beautiful, like, homes that look identical to each other.
The cookie cutter homes.
Yeah, the cookie cutter homes. But they were beautiful, and they were 2-story, homes. And the American dream and all that was beautiful. And then one day I remember going over that mountain and seeing all the outlets. And I was like, what the hell? It used to just be the airport. You would only just see an airport. And then there came that giant shopping center there.
I know, it's like three huge parking lots now. I remember when I was a kid, it was a little smaller, but it was always there. But it dominates all of Camarillo now. Like, people go there just to go to those outlets.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just remember that, and I remember walking around when I was young with my cousins at the what's the name of the mall there?
The Collection?
No, the name of what's the islands? The Channel Islands Mall.
Oh, the Channel Islands, yeah.
Yeah. So we used to go to that mall back in the days. But tell me a little bit about you growing up, and were you born there?
No, I was actually born in the valley in Northridge, and until I was about 5, I spent time living between the little town of Lake LA. It's at the farthest east corner of like LA County out in the desert. And I lived between there and between my dad's rancho called Las Cañas, Guanajuato, for a lot of years.
So let's start with Northridge area. Were your parents working out here in the field area or in the fields?
My parents both came like in the 1980s, and they actually met because they were both working in restaurants. Like my dad was like a busboy, and my mom was like a waitress, and they both worked a lot of jobs. But since they had family in the valley, like in the San Fernando Valley, that's why they usually worked like in town.
That sounds nice. You have a big family?
Yes, I'm the middle child of 5.
I met some of your family the other day at your opening. Was that your opening?
Yes. Yeah. You probably met my my youngest sister and then my oldest sister and probably my brother too, my youngest brother.
I met one of your sisters that works in a law office.
Yeah, that's my youngest sister. That's
and I met your mom.
Yeah.
It was really sweet. Yeah. Yeah. So you had a big family growing up there. When did you move to Oxnard?
I actually moved to Oxnard about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So as like a kid, I knew of Oxnard because my dad's company that he would work for in Valencia used to do their, they called it like a summer picnic.
Oh, okay.
In the Oxnard Beach Park. Oh. And when I was a kid, we'd go out there all the time. And I remember when I was really little, I always loved the city and I always wished I would end up moving there. And it's when I met my husband that he actually got a job at the Navy base out there. So we just ended up moving after I finished college. And I've been there ever since, and I love it.
Oh, okay. So you're not, you didn't grow up in Oxnard,
No.
which is what I thought the whole time.
No,
okay.
I grew up in the Antelope Valley, like the Lancaster, Palmdale area.
Yeah, so even a lot more rural, right?
Yes. Like you're talking about those tract homes, the Antelope Valley is all tract homes.
Yeah.
It's just a big open desert and nothing but huge, but the houses are huge though.
Homes that look identical to the next one.
Yeah, but they're humongous. Like the house that my dad ended up buying when I was like in middle school is like a 3,000 square foot house. And at the time, it was the farthest edge of Lancaster, but they've kept expanding, and there's like more neighborhoods out there now.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a great place, like very commuter area, but it feels very lonely because there isn't too much of a Latino presence there. Not like in like LA or like the San Fernando Valley.
I thought there would be.
There's like pockets now. Before there didn't used to be though. Like when I was a kid, like my parents were some of the first ones that were kind of living out there. And like they slowly started going from, because it was mainly in like Lake LA, and they started moving like west. So like a lot of East Palmdale, there's a lot of Latinos there. But the farther you move west, like where my parents live, they live in like West Lancaster, there's like none. Yeah.
So you could only get your tortillas at home.
Yeah, or at the Vallarta. Yeah.
That's cool. But you had a big family, so that must have been fun, like growing up with, all the brothers and sisters. And
yeah, it was definitely interesting. There was...
Was there a lot of fighting?
Not a lot of fighting. It was like maybe fighting for resources. There was a lot of us. I mean, and then me and my older sister are only a year and a half apart, but since my parents didn't have a lot of money, like we lived with like a lot of hand-me-downs. But it sucked for me because my older sister, even though she wasn't that much older, she was always a lot taller than I was and genuinely bigger. Like she was like twice my size my whole life. So whenever they'd give me her clothes, I was like swimming in it.
Yeah. Well, that must have been pretty cool if it was during the baggy days,
Yeah.
If you were a young
2000s.
raver, yeah, exactly.
It was still in style.
That's funny. So when did you, growing up, when did you pick up drawing or art or?
I always did it from the time I was really little. Like I don't remember a time where I wasn't doing it. But I don't think I got serious with it until high school. It was the first time I had a teacher.
What do you mean by serious with it? Why do you remember that being the moment that you got serious?
Because I remember that before then, I would draw like occasionally, and it was something I did during all of my free time. But it wasn't until I got to high school that I started thinking more about what I was making. Because before I just loved doing portraits, and I would draw with whatever I had. And when I got to high school and I met Mr. Harris, who was my high school teacher, he saw something in me, I guess, and he knew that I couldn't afford supplies, so he would get me anything I wanted to try. and he'd like always write me passes to get out of class to go to his class. And it was like I had like my own private little art school when I was in high school.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mr. Harris at
Lancaster High School.
There he is. I mean, we do need a lot of stories come with a person like that that really just, it's just a simple thing of like watering a plant, you know? It's such a simple thing of having that one person at least to say, wow, that's not like in a bullshit way, like, wow, you're good, you know, but like somebody that recognizes it and actually also has the ability to, you know, to nurture it, and cultivate this little tiny seed that is in you. And so, shout out to all the teachers like that.
Yeah.
Because damn,
I mean, that's the whole reason I went into teaching. Because if it hadn't have been for him, I probably would be a nurse right now, like I was planning to be. I'd be working.
I'm making money.
Dang.
If it wasn't for him, I'd have a well-paying job.
Yep.
Not that you don't. I don't know what you do now, but
I teach at a high school. I mean, it still pays pretty well, but I'd definitely be making more if I was a nurse.
I mean, teachers are, famously underpaid.
Yeah.
But it's still a very respectable job, and
and it's something I've kind of just learned that it depends on where you teach too, because when I was thinking about going into teaching, I thought the same thing. I was like, it's kind of the same across the board, but it changes depending what district you're in, how good the union is. You get better pay.
That's good.
Yeah, like I'm pretty lucky. Like the district I work at has a killer union, so they fight for raises like every 6 months.
Oh, that's good. So, you go to high school, you start to get into art. Did that help decide where you went to college?
It did. Mr. Harris actually is the one that recommended Cal State Long Beach when I was a high schooler. And even though I always told him, well, I'm not going to go into art, he would always be like, well, you should still look into that school. And I did. Like, I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach because it was honestly the only school I knew about. And when, I transferred from the community college, I remember that I lied to my parents and I told them I had applied to 4 different schools for nursing, and I didn't. I only applied to Long Beach for painting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oiga, señora, si está escuchando.
No, don't tell her.
They don't know to this day?
Well, my mom does. I told her afterwards, but my dad didn't know.
Yeah.
But because when I got in, I just told them, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Long Beach. I got in, and they're like, oh, that's great. So they never asked any questions after that.
Yeah, because that's not part of their concern. That's awesome though. Yeah. So you go to Cal State Long Beach, and you still don't think you're gonna be an artist? You're still just drawing for yourself, just like enjoying it as a hobby?
Well,
Are you starting to look at painters deeper? Are you starting to go to museums and galleries, anything like that?
Museums and galleries, no, because I didn't have time.
And you're still, fresh out of high school, and a lot of us as young kids, we don't do that a lot until we find it ourselves.
And I actually, I transferred from the community college, so I was, I went to Long Beach as a junior. So at that point, I knew that I wanted, painting was something I loved, and I felt like I owed myself the chance to at least try. And I went into Long Beach knowing that I wanted to be an artist, and that's what I wanted to be, and I was going to do whatever I could to do it. But my parents were always like, well, you're not going to make any money. So that's where I ended up telling them, well, I'm going to be a teacher, I'm studying to be a teacher. And they were like, okay. And I remember every semester my dad would call and he'd be like, well, when are you taking your teaching classes? And I was like, later.
Your credentials, right?
Yeah, and I was like, later.
They do come at the end, don't they? Or
no, so there's actually a program if you know you're going to be a teacher from off the bat, you can just major in art education. And it's the same thing, except you don't get to specialize in painting.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a painter, and I wanted to do the teaching after.
Yeah,
so I ended up getting my BFA, and then I went back for the credentialing program the very next semester.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell me a little bit about this famous Long Beach art program, because I mentioned this last time when we had Elmer here that Long Beach develops a lot of artists that are figurative.
Yeah. That's all thanks to UG, probably. He was the life drawing professor. I think he still teaches there, though.
Okay.
But he was amazing. At least when I was there, like we had like a really great faculty. Like we had Marie, who was amazing in color theory, and that's why I feel like a lot of us have a similar sense in color. And then we had Yuji, who was the master of like anything figurative. So he taught us how to really look at the world and how to break it down. So he was probably one of the most influential teachers I had. The hardest one to please, but the one that I kept taking over and over again.
Hardest to please.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
He would do this thing, I remember, that he'd walk around, he'd look at your drawing, and if he didn't erase
I'm already scared.
Yeah, because he would know, like, you'd sit there, like, sweating, because he would do that. Like, he would erase your drawing and draw over it to, like, tell you where you went wrong, and you really had to take it as, like, he was really trying to help you see.
Yeah.
So you couldn't be offended when he did it. He wasn't trying to be mean. He was trying to help you see where your errors were and where you could improve. But he would do that. The other thing he would do is after he looked at your drawing and he said that it was basically garbage and there was nothing good about it, he'd like lightly tap your shoulder and say, "But you're very talented," and then he'd walk away.
That's nice.
But I think he did that because he may have been getting some complaints about being a little too mean.
Well,
but he was great.
So I took theater for a while, and we had old school theater instructors that made people cry.
Yeah.
Like literally made people cry and then say, "Do the damn scene." You know, like even if you're crying, do the damn scene. This is in rehearsals, of course.
Yeah.
And in rehearsals, when you're trying to get a show going on with like 20 people and one person goes wrong, they would blow up.
Yeah.
And throw stuff. And you know, I think it's just an old school thing. Like little by little, that was removed from teachers, and so maybe that instructor still had some of that old school stuff. But that hard approach works.
It does.
I mean, that hard approach works.
100%. Like I feel like before I took him, I thought I knew how to draw. I was very wrong. Like it was crazy. Like the first time I took him, like I felt so incompetent after 2 weeks in his class because I also made the mistake of not listening to people telling me that you have to take his drawing class before his painting class. Because it's all based off of the drawing. So I took the painting first, and I was playing catch up the whole time. And I felt like I didn't know anything. Yeah. But after taking like painting and drawing with him, like I understood what he was saying. Like he taught the same lesson in all of his classes, and he taught it the same way. But it's very true in the sense that you have to take him multiple times and have him tear your stuff apart before you really understood what he was trying to say. And it's amazing. I teach my kids how to draw the way he taught me.
You slap them?
Light tap on the shoulder.
Light tap on the shoulder. You're very talented.
Well, it's because I told that story to my kids, and it turned into like an insider joke that whenever I would call a kid talented, they would think I was saying that they weren't. Yeah. So it just ended up turning into like a funny class joke for them.
I like it a lot. So here you are. You're developing your painting style, and you're developing your own eye, and you're developing how to see things. When do you think you kind of, or have you, because you're very young, and you just started, you've only had one solo show, right?
Yes.
And when did you, or have you, like, found your style yet, or like your...
I think... So I felt like after about 2 years after graduating, like when COVID hit.
Oh, wait, you went to Northridge too for your master's.
Oh, yeah, I had just started the semester. Yeah.
Okay.
But 2 years after COVID had, or the year that COVID hit, I was alone in my studio a lot, and that's when I really felt like I started trying to figure out like what I was doing, and I started like breaking a little bit away from all the things that I was taught in college, but still trying to hold on to the important lessons. Like, I don't feel like I'm quite there yet, but I'm definitely on track to, like, on the route where I'm trying to figure it out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have some amazing pieces, and one of the things that I like a lot about your pieces is the storytelling in it. There are some deep stories in there, some deep narratives, and you don't even have to say any words. You can just look at it and feel the vibe. And so, like, that touch, like, where does that touch come from? Like, it's
That comes from my grandpa, from my abuelito Victor. He actually passed away last December. But I remember when I was a kid, he was the most amazing storyteller you could ever imagine. And he wasn't a painter, he wasn't an artist, but he would tell us, he would make up, I realize now he was making them up, but he would make up these stories to get us to not do something, and it was usually because we were bothering him. Like, he would want to go visit the vecino, and we would be like chicles, and we'd be like, oh, we'll go with you, abuelito, and he would stop, and like on the dot, he would make up like this 20-minute story about why we couldn't do it, and it was like some crazy ghost story with like some historical context that he would make up. And I remember that the way he would say it, like I could see like a movie in my head. And, like, that always resonated with me. And, like, anytime you would talk to him, that's how he would talk. He talked like he was, like, telling you, like, a story, regardless of what you asked him. So that always stuck with me. And he got sick, like, around COVID, so I spent more time with him. And that's when I started trying to figure out, like, well, I want to do that in, like, my paintings, too. Like, I want to have a narrative. I want each piece to have its own little story. And I want everything to be intentional. Just like every word he said was intentional. Like, you couldn't understand his story unless he said every part that he said. Yeah. So I think it definitely came from him.
I love it. And there's a lot of detail in your work. And I like that you mentioned the other professor that you learned your color theory from, because yes, I mean, there's just such a mix of like colors, confetti of colors all over your images, and somehow magically they all make sense in the places that they are, even though they don't belong there, you know?
Yeah.
It's not natural where it is.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at the painting,
it makes sense.
It makes complete sense. And that's something beautiful that I can, you know, with my untrained eye, see and appreciate it in your work. But there's also, I guess, a somberness. Like, every piece is quiet.
Yeah.
Every piece is still, and every piece kind of looks back at you.
Yeah.
Even if it's not looking back at you, it's thinking back at you.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, am I wrong, or
no?
It just feels like it's thinking back at me. It feels like it's telling me something.
Yeah.
Quietly, like
whispering
not secretly.
it to you.
Yeah. It's not a secret, but it's just something that doesn't need to be screamed. It's something that wants to convey softly.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I strive to do that, since a lot of the work is about, like, it all has undertones when it comes to, like, immigration, and immigration is such a political issue. Like, it always has been, but I feel like it's, you know, it has its times where it gets more politicized, like right now. And, like, the number one thing that I never want to do is I don't want to keep someone away from the work by being confrontational. Like, I want it to start a dialogue. So I'm glad that it comes off as something that's, like, subtle instead of screaming. Yeah,
even the piece where you have there's a hand coming out, and it says, you know, the family pack.
Oh, el paquete familia.
Paquete familia, yeah. So that piece is
very political.
Very political. It's very specifically about immigration.
Yeah.
And I mean, and if you look at it and you don't try to read it, it's just a beautiful painting.
Yeah.
But if you try to read all the little things, even the hand coming out, which is Trump's little tiny hand, you get so much from it. You get so much more. Yeah. That's yeah. I mean, it's exactly what I'm saying. Like, you're speaking so softly but sincerely through your work, and yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. What else can you tell us about another painting, maybe? I know that we're not looking at the paintings here because it's a podcast, but hopefully people will look them up. Or what is one of the paintings that you would like, if you're listening, to look up?
The one of the larger pieces I had in my solo show was titled Hasta aquí llegamos, gracias a ti, pa. And that's a piece about my dad specifically. But I feel like that piece resonated the most with me when I was making it, and it was the hardest one to put up on the wall because I didn't want to let that one go. It was
so that meant that it might sell.
Yeah.
And it did sell.
I don't know yet. I hope it does.
Okay.
But I feel like that was the hardest one to kind of give it up for the opportunity, just because it felt like such a quiet conversation with my dad. And my dad's like a guy of like, es un hombre de pocas palabras, a few words. He doesn't say much. And that was the only painting, that's the only one out of all my paintings that he's ever...
Is that the one with the kids lying down?
No, so that's the one with the man who looks up and there's 3 windows with like the sunset.
Got it.
Yeah, but that's the only piece that he's ever called me to talk about it before. He's never called me about any of my paintings. And he called me for that one, and he was just...
How did this conversation go? What's up, mija?
Yeah.
Tell me about this pintura right here.
He was just like, well, the first thing he said is, me hiciste ver muy viejo, muchas canas. And I was like, Dad.
The vanity.
I was like, you're 54, sir.
Oh, that's cute.
But like that piece was... I feel like it's the reason why I paint, because a lot of my work, it draws from the stories that my parents told me. Because since I didn't immigrate here, like I grew up here and I have like other stories, but it was their stories of crossing that have always resonated with me. And with that piece, like I talk about that, where my dad, when he shares those stories, he's more so talking about it because of the end result. Like he wants you to understand like what happens at the end, like the future, like everything, and like the meaning for it. And for me, every time I heard the stories, it was about the beginning, and it was about the journey itself. So that piece kind of chronicles it, where in the piece, my dad kind of sits and he's holding one of my youngest nephews, and he looks up, kind of pensively thinking about the end result, which was him leaving his small rancho. He worked in the fields, and then he ended up moving to like Lancaster, Palmdale, and that's where he established like that safe haven for all the other members that came and immigrated and stayed with us. But then like in the bottom left corner, you see there's like a boy who looks back over at a dog, which the dogs always signify coyotes for me in my work. And instead of looking at what my dad's gazing at, the boy can't stop looking at the dog. And that's meant to be kind of like me, that I can't stop thinking about the actual story itself and not where it took us in the end.
That's I'm amazed at like the complicated story and then how you can turn it into a composition. And include all these things and then have them make sense. Now, when you draw, let's say, for example, in that image, you put your father in there. Is that from a photo or is that from memory or is that? It's
usually most of my work is a combination of like photographs, memory, imagination, things like that, a lot of patterning. But
it's not like you had them pose.
No. That's the other thing. Every photo that I use is it's candid photos. So I don't tell anybody to pose for anything. I kind of just like
collect them.
Yeah, like my family makes fun of me because they say I'm like the camera fiend, because it doesn't matter what's going on, I take pictures of everything.
Good.
Yeah, but like that photo of my dad, I happened to take a picture of it just because I was like sitting on the floor, he was holding my nephew, and it was like the second time he got to hold him, and he just looked like he went into like a private moment where he was like reflecting on like, wow, like I have a grandson now. So that's why I snapped that photo. And it was months later that I kept looking at it and I was like, something about this picture. And it kept making me think about like how my dad is as a person and like the story. So I started off the painting with just him on the couch. And the way most of my work revolves is it's always like a conversation where I'm asking myself like what it is about this image or about this work that I feel like I have to get it out. And eventually that's where I dig around and I start coming up with why I'm making it. And that's where I start almost like adding images in and then taking them away or like rearranging them. So it's almost like I'm collaging with paint until I get to the final result.
So you actually start working on it and then painting over it and then painting over it.
Correct.
Do you use oil or acrylic?
Oil.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like recently I've been working a lot with like oil and paint markers because the paint markers glide on top of the oil easier than like charcoal or pen does. Yeah. Because I always draw over it. Like I have a loose foundation, I do like a layer, and then I put it aside for a while, and then I come back, and once it won't stop staring at me, then I'm like, okay, I pick it up again, and I figure out, well, what's going to happen next? Like the first piece you talked about, El Mercado, that one changed. I think it went through 8 different layers.
Wow.
Where a lot of the stuff that's in there now wasn't in there. I think the only things that were originally in that image were the boy and the cat.
Wow.
Those are the only things that stayed the same from the beginning. Everything else kind of changed because I removed some of the symbolism because at the beginning it was more aggressive because I was very angry when I first made it. And then it sat for like a year through COVID.
Wow.
And then like I ended up covering up or reworking some of the imagery.
A year. Wow. So then the symbolism, how do you how did you develop your ideas of symbolism? Did you also study symbology, or was there something? Did you read the Da Vinci Code? Or?
No, it's just things that make sense to me. I don't know.
Okay, so
it's pictures that kind of pop.
Your own kind of metaphors that you make in your head.
Yeah. Like I'm always trying to find some way, because like the symbolism, at least personally, it's a conversation between me and the work. Yeah. And that's usually why, like, even when I post on Instagram or on my websites, I don't talk about the symbolism. Yeah. Because it's something that if someone wants to know, like, I'll share it. Yeah. But it's not crucial for me for the audience to know. No. Because they're very a lot of them are very private moments where I'm reflecting and trying to figure out what's going on. And
also, I think as a viewer, I like to make discoveries. Yes. You know, I like to look at it and try to figure it out myself and try to, you know, make out the story myself, especially now knowing how much is inside your work. I'm going to look at it and be like, okay, yeah, what's this?
The little Easter eggs.
Yeah, exactly. And then still end up talking to you later and getting more and being like, piling that on top of what I thought is like a really fun sandwich.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I love too is I love when people look at something and they come up with like their own symbolism for it, and it's very close to what I was originally going for. So I'm like, okay, that's good. That's great. Connect to it.
I love it. So you just had your solo show
at Luna Anais Gallery.
Is that show done already?
No, it got extended. It's going to be up until November 18th.
Okay, so till November 18th, you have time to go see the show at Luna
Anais Gallery. Yeah.
And we'll give you all her Instagram information at the end. But okay, so you had this show. This is your first solo show with this many pieces, right?
It's my first solo show ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
So you've had group shows where you take one or two images and.
Yeah, I've only had 3 group shows where I've been curated into them. Yeah.
And now you have this show with at least 10 pieces.
Yes.
10. Yeah. And how was that? Like, I know that a lot of it is pulling these pieces that have been sitting around your house for a while, but was there anything that you had to paint last minute?
All of it.
Yeah.
I made all the work new for the show.
Oh, okay. So it's all brand new work.
The only work that was not brand new was the largest piece, the one of the boy sitting in the flowers.
Okay.
That piece was from my my graduation show for my undergrad degree.
Oh, okay.
So that one's from 2018. But everything else in that show, I made it all in the last 6 months for that show.
Oh, okay. That's the image that I was pretty sure you had sold already.
Yes, that one is sold. Yeah, the largest piece. Yeah.
When you first started talking about that, I thought you were talking about that one. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, putting together a show like that, I enjoy when people put up new work every time. Yeah. I know it's hard, and then there's retrospectives and all that. But man, that's just, I want to hear a little bit about your process with this show and putting it together, because artists, when they do their first solo show, including myself, we put ourselves through the ringer. And tell me a little bit about your process doing this first show.
Well, when the gallery approached me for it, they told me straight off the bat that they wanted all new work. Okay. And like they had told me like 6 or 7 months ago about it, so I already had certain paintings that I had in my mind. So what I ended up doing is I made like sketches of 10 paintings that I was planning to do. And out of those 10, I think I did 4. And the rest just kind of, they came to me as I make them. Because the way I normally work is I'll stretch all the surfaces with a general idea. And then I'll just knock them all out. So I'll do one day where I sit and like I'll draw out one composition for the first layer, and I'll do the first layer of paint, and then I'll put it aside, and then I'll move on to the next one. So like 2 months into me preparing, I had all 10 pieces started. They were just in different stages.
How much time altogether did you have?
To do all the pieces? 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so you kept going and...
Yes. So I kept kind of going, like working on like one by one, and some of them changed completely where I ended up painting over them. Like the one of my dad was a completely different idea when I first started it off, and then I ended up painting over it because the one of my dad just wouldn't stop speaking to me, so I ended up putting that one on top instead. But yeah, that's the way it normally goes. Like I have like 5 or 6 pieces going at the same time, and they usually inform on each other. Like if I get stuck on one, I move on to the next one. But then usually when I resolve one, I look back at the other one and I'm like, oh, now I know what to do here. Yeah. Like the big piece of the baptism. That one was the first one I had started, and it was the last one I finished because I just didn't know what to do with it. Like it sat in my studio in that first stage for 5 months. And it wasn't until I got to the very end that I finally figured out what it is I wanted to do with it.
How does that how was the stress of it, like getting through it?
Oh, it was very stressful.
Did you finish with a lot of time?
I actually finished with 3 weeks to spare.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See, that's
just enough time for it to dry.
Most people just wait so long and procrastinate, and the night before they're still
still painting.
Yeah, they're still going at it, and you know, I'll be there in the morning with it, you know. Phone calls like that. So.
No, I have to be very organized with my time, because since I teach full time, I have very limited time. Yeah. Like during the school year, like I'm at work all day.
You're good then.
I'm at work all day, and then I had to find a way to cheat too, because the 2 drawings that were in that show, I actually did them while I was teaching with the kids.
Oh, okay.
Like it was the end of the year, so I could trust them more. They were doing their projects, so I taped paper up to the whiteboard and I worked on those 2, and I cranked them out in like 2 weeks. But like a lot of the work came together during the summer when I had the whole summer just in my studio. I was in there like 8 hours a day, every day.
Is your studio at your house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the spare bedroom in my house. But I was painting in there so much that my husband had to get like an air purifier, because I was giving myself migraines from like the solvents, because I wasn't used to being in there that long anymore. Yeah,
that stuff is pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to hear stories of like you like having deadlines and not making it, but you actually
I'm pretty paranoid with deadlines. It's like if someone tells me when they need something by, I'll have it done. I am a procrastinator though. So like I'm telling you, I finished the last 5 during that last week.
Okay.
So it's like they all came together at the end, because I remember the owner of the gallery kept asking me for updates, and I was like, you gotta wait till the end, girl. It looks like I haven't done anything, but I swear I have.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that is the thought process part, the figuring it out, even if you're not throwing paint on the canvas.
Yeah, that part takes forever. Like there'd be days where,
because you have to feel good about it, and you have to move forward feeling good about it and all that.
Definitely. There'd be days where I'd sit in there with just like my reality TV going, and I'd just be staring at them. Yeah. And like my husband would come in and he'd be like, "What are you doing? You're not painting." And I was like, "I'm working."
Yeah. Tú no me entiendes.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing next.
Well, that's exciting. And you keep bringing up your husband, but you said that you're about to get married? You're having a wedding now?
Yeah, so we got like legally married like through el civil, like a civil wedding, like a year ago, because we got engaged during COVID. Okay. So we didn't know when we were going to actually have a party. Got it. But we're doing our big wedding at the end of this month on the 29th.
Got it. And we'll have that information down here for you guys.
Carnitas for everybody. Mariachi starts at 1.
Actually, we'll have the... What do they call it when you get... Oh, we'll have the registry.
The registry posted.
Yeah, for La Target.
Yeah.
But congratulations on that. Let's see. What else can you share? What else would you like to share with us about your life as an artist?
It's been very exciting the last year, because I feel like when I graduated from school, it felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere, but I still... Like, I loved making the work, and that's why I just kept doing it. And it felt like it was just piling up in my studio, not going anywhere. And it wasn't until this year that I've been, like, very lucky to get a lot of opportunity. And now I can't seem to keep it in my studio. So that's been great. It's like there's been, like, I have a lot of really cool stuff that's planned for the start of next year. And I can't wait till I get to announce it.
Good. Announce it.
I gotta wait.
Oh, okay. Are there any obstacles that you want to talk about, or any warnings you want to give people just
I mean,
leaving
I feel
school?
like the biggest obstacle slash solution, I guess, has been my teaching job. Because before I had the job, the biggest obstacle was finances. Like, I had so many ideas and works that I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't afford to do it, and I didn't have the space. And now that I'm teaching, like, I have the resources to do it, but it's like a double-edged sword because it takes away a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because, like, especially my first 2 years teaching, I had to create all my curriculum, so I was working in and out of the classroom all day long. And, like, I've gotten to a point where it's gotten easier, but the biggest obstacle is always trying to get myself to go into the studio. Like, I have to remind myself, like, yeah, I'm tired, but the work's not going to make itself.
Do you find yourself having to like code switch even?
What do you mean?
Like, you code switch from a group of people at work to a group of people at home.
Oh,
Do you find yourself having to like turn off work and like
100%.
turn on artist
100%.
and turn on those deep thoughts
Yeah.
that you avoid while you're like helping kids?
Yeah, 100%. I have to do that all the time. And it's hard. Like, it's hard coming home after teaching because, like, even though they're high school kids, it's a lot of what feels like almost babysitting.
Of course.
It's like it's managing the classroom, it's reminding them, it's like I'm teaching them very foundational stuff 24/7, and then I have to come home and then, like, it's like you said, like, force myself to go into the studio and, like, think those deep thoughts. Yeah, and I feel like that's more tiring than it is like, because working with the kids is physically draining, but being in my studio is mentally draining.
Yeah. And you have to find that mental place where you can actually start
Yeah.
hitting, or do you just start?
I usually just go in. Like, if I don't have a headspace to work on, like the symbolism or like the composition, that's where all of the repetition I do in my work comes in real handy.
You just start putting colors in.
I start doing my tile work like on a day where I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know it needs tile work. I'll go in, I'll do the tile. When it comes to figuring out the color, that's just me practicing my color theory. So it's an easy way to get a lot of work done without thinking about the hard stuff. And then that's where drawing comes into. Drawing feels like it's second nature. So whenever I'm having like mental burnout, I just draw. And it makes it easier.
Drawing's a lot of fun. I call it line therapy.
It is.
That's awesome. What do you think you're gonna do after this show?
I hope to be able to do another solo. That'd be nice. But I'm working on another body of work and then hoping that someone picks it up and wants to show it somewhere.
Okay.
So I don't do another gallery show in my hallway.
So you just start putting pieces together and
that's usually the way it goes. Like, I take like maybe 2 weeks off after I do something big, like with like the solo show, and then the ideas are nagging me after that. So I gotta dive back in, and it's like, I don't know where this is going, but I'm making it.
I think also the practice of showing the work and then being forced to talk about the work so much in front of people over and over just changes your head too, and changes the gears and makes things different, and also inspires new things. And you had to do some of that, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I had like my artist talk this past Sunday, actually. And I actually really enjoy doing the talks because I love when people ask questions about things that I never thought about, or where they notice things in the work that I didn't realize that I did. But it makes a lot of sense that it was probably intentional. I just didn't realize it. So I love doing that, where I get to talk about the work, like either one-on-one or with a crowd.
Because you learn from it too. Yeah, things grow from that too. And
yeah, because when I sit there alone trying to write a statement about it, like nothing comes to my mind. I can't. I sit there and I'm like, I don't know what I did, but I did it. And that's why, like, that's where my younger sister Nati, the one you met, that's where she comes in. Anytime I have to do a statement, I call her and I send her pictures, and then I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't even know what I did. And like, she looks at it and she'll start like asking me questions or making inferences, and then from there I'll be like, no, you're wrong, I did this or whatever. And like, she gets it flowing for me. Yeah, because she's also a writer, so she's really good at like doing things like that.
I like that. It's always good to have somebody to help you just throw ideas out. So next show is this pieces that you're working on, and what do you? Let's just say, what is? Do you have a vision for like 5 years from now, 10 years from now,
Yeah,
or do you just take it in stride like I do, one day at a time?
I do that too, but I do have a vision. I mean, I hope, like, the ultimate dream is to be able to go, like, I don't want to stop teaching because it does nurture my creative practice, working with the kids, and it helps me reflect, but I do want to go down to part-time. So being able to have enough shows and selling enough work, like 5 to 10 years from now, where I can just teach in the mornings, like 7 to 10, and then the rest of the time is studio work, that would be amazing.
That's the dream.
That's the dream.
Maybe a studio outside of the house.
I actually really like the studio in the house. I mean, I'd prefer a bigger one, like if we got a house and I could keep the garage.
Well, yeah.
But I love the convenience of working from home because I can't get myself to sit in a room for 8 hours and only do that. And I feel like that's what makes it very difficult for me whenever I had a studio that was outside of the house. I didn't want to go to it. And like my studio at the house, it gives me the benefit of like, well, I'm like burnt out. Let me go throw some laundry in like the washer. Let me go make some dinner real quick, and then I'll come back and I'll keep working. Or, oh my God, it's 11 o'clock, but I can't stop thinking about this. Let me just go across the hall.
That line in.
Yeah, and I've done that before. Like my husband gets annoyed sometimes because I'll wake up at like 11 and I'll be like, I have to go to the studio, and then he's used to it at this point. But it's like I have to go do something, and it's like bugging me.
That's awesome. It's your work.
Yeah.
Who are the people that, local or historical or recent, that you look at, that you appreciate?
I really, really appreciate Tita's work, Tita Whitney Leake. She went to Long Beach around the same time I did, but like I kind of missed her. Like,
I saw one of her shows.
Yeah,
Beautiful work.
Her work is amazing. But I've always looked at her work. I always thought it was amazing watching the way she kind of progressed, but the way that she handles the figure, and like same thing, she does like a lot of very intense personal.
And
like
she's from Long Beach too, right?
Yeah.
She has the same. Her characters or her people have a similar, figurative language.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But she's one of the people I look at a lot. Elmer's also one of the ones that I love.
Love him.
I love Manuel's work.
Who?
Manuel Lopez, right?
Who? I'm kidding. Yeah. Yeah. The homie.
I mean, I loved his work. And I remember the first time I met him, I was like starstruck. I was like, that's you? Oh, but like I love the way like he draws, and like I don't know, like it's very brave to me.
I hate it. Because he has such a magical fucking hand.
He does.
He can just put the pen down and move it around a little bit and be like, check it out. And I'm like,
and it looks perfect.
Yeah. And the one thing I told him is that his paintings or his drawings never look incomplete.
No.
It could be just the beginning and a couple of lines, and it looks like
it looks finished.
That's it. Like it's done.
It's the confidence he has, and like he knows exactly what he's putting down. Like even if he doesn't know it consciously, like like the confidence like screams at you from the paper.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I love about his work.
So now he has a studio that I've been able to visit every once in a while, and it's kind of interesting for me to watch him paint and see how he struggles
with painting.
Not that I like to see him struggle, but see like how he has to resolve certain things, and it takes. With the pencil, you just go in and you start not whatever, but, he trusts his hand or what he's looking at. But with these paintings, it takes him a while to figure out colors, and it takes him a while to, like, no, that color, like, he'll finish it, but then be like, it needed to be something else, and he'll change it and paint on top of it. And seeing that process is pretty interesting.
I'm the same way in my studio. Like, I've always told everybody, like, drawing is second nature. I don't have to think about it. Like, there's never a question about what it's going to look like. Like, it's 100% resolved before I touch the pen down. It's easy. Yeah. And painting is a battle. That's why they take me longer. Like, I feel like I struggle a lot with painting, and I don't know why. People say that when they look at the work, it doesn't look like I struggled. Yeah. Like, I'm fighting that canvas every day.
You make it look like it all came through in one stroke.
No.
Seriously. It seriously appears like you knew exactly what you were doing from the beginning to the end.
No, I never know what it's going to look like at the end.
My friend Raul Baltasar, do you know him?
Yeah.
He I get to visit his house a lot, and he has pieces that like months after months continue to change and evolve. And I go back and I'm like, "What happened? What did you do?" Because he'll completely like he had something that was to me gorgeous and amazing,
Resolved, yeah.
but he in his head didn't see it. So he, when you start to touch one thing, you touch another thing. So
Yeah.
it'll then go to another place where it's a mess before it finds
It's resolution.
its resolution again, and it evolves a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys go through hell. I mean, but it was
Painting, I don't know. I think the issue, well, it's not an issue, but like it's also the beauty of like painting in like any type of painting medium is you have so much freedom to make mistakes because you can always cover it up. So it's like once you let go of that final idea and you just let it tell you where it's gonna go, it sometimes turns into a dark hole because you fall down it and then you're always trying to figure out like, well, is this really the end? I don't know. Like I could fix this, I could fix that, and that's usually why. Like once I've done like 4 or 5 layers, like I hide the painting. And I was like, that's it. I was like, if I keep going, this is going to turn into something else.
do you find yourself like finally going like, that's it, I got it, or do you have to say like stop?
I have to say
leave
stop.
it alone.
No, I have to say stop. Like, do you remember the painting of like the boy that got his face pushed into the cake?
Yes, I love that so
Okay.
much. Yeah.
That painting, I went through a couple different layers in it, and I had to tell myself stop because I was gonna paint over. Because again, I draw over the painting, and I was gonna paint over the balloon and the hands after I had done the line work, but I loved it. But my brain kept saying, "But you have to paint over it," and I had to be like, "No, you don't." And then I realized after I finished it that the patterning in the back, I didn't have my hand as steady as I thought I did when I was tracing it, and it started to fall down, and it sloped down like this, and I wanted it to be even, and I was really mad, but I was like, I'm just going to leave it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's going to stay that way.
And that's fine. It's just a little tiny touch that only you know about, or people with a really good eye.
Yeah.
Or they'll think you did it intentionally.
People do, and I let them think that.
Yeah, because that's kind of cool. It just starts to droop.
Yeah, it did. And I was so upset when I saw, because I didn't notice it till a week after. And I wanted to go back in and fix it, and I was like, no, that's it.
I think the only thing that I could like compare it to in my life is writing, where it's like you can continue
to revise.
And sometimes you're done with a sentence or you're done with the whole thing, and then you turn it in and you're like, oh, but that word.
Yeah, I could have done something else.
Just gotta let it go sometimes, and it hurts.
Yeah, it does.
It hurts physically and mentally to be done.
Yeah.
Or to just say, all right, that's it.
You almost feel empty when it's done. Like I feel that way. Like when I finished all the pieces for like the solo show, like I felt kind of empty, and like I had to close the door to my studio for a week because I knew that if I kept going back in there, because I was doing that for like 2 days, like I was gonna change things, and I was like, that's it. I gotta let it go, and like I closed the door, I put boxes in front of it, and I was like, I'm not coming back in until Anna tells me that I have to drop the work off. And I left it there. That was part of my 2-week break.
Wow. Yeah, you have to trick yourself. That's really interesting. Wow. And that just goes to show like how much of yourself you put in it.
Yeah.
You put in so much of yourself in that I mean it's so personal, right?
Yeah, and it's even more just because like all of the artworks they're all portraits of my family. And this like the show was the first time I actually made portraits of my parents. I always avoided, like I made work about them, but I always used like children or like other things to like symbolize them, and it was never actually them in their likeness. And I did it for the first time in this show, and it was nerve-wracking. It was very difficult because I have like such a perceived image of them that I didn't want to portray it in a way that wasn't true to what I saw.
Wow, what a process.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to your work in the future and your shows and watching you grow. I'm excited to see where, this all takes you and what paths you make for yourself, as well as what paths are offered to you. Sometimes we make them ourselves, and sometimes somebody calls and says, hey, want to come this way? So I'm excited to see what happens for you, and I look forward to all of your work. I want you to tell people where they can find you online.
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place to see anything new. So like my username is DAHNN 3 I's.
Danny.
Danny.
Okay. And your website?
Danny Garcia Art.
Danny Garcia Art.
.com.
All right. And anything else that we didn't mention that you would like to talk about?
No, I think we covered just about everything. I'm really excited to come in, so thanks for having me, Rafa. It was great.
Definitely. There's a question that we ask everybody at the end of each show. And, you know, if a being came down from another planet or from another dimension and looked at you and all your work and was amazed at everything that you did and couldn't figure out how the hell this came out of your body and your brain, how would you answer if they looked at you and said, Daniela, how do you do it?
I would probably just say there's no way that I can't do it. Just comes out on its own.
Beautiful. There's no way that I can't do it. It just comes out on its own. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And really looking forward to seeing more of you in the future.
Thank you. I can't wait.
And we'll see you guys next week.